Airlines brace for huge July 4th weekend crowds. The July 4th vacation weekend is out to a booming launch with field crowds crushing the figures seen in 2019, before the epidemic. Trippers across the United States endured hundreds of canceled breakouts and many thousand detainments on Friday, important as they did before this week. Patricia Carreño arrived with musketeers at Los Angeles International Airport only to learn that their Alaska Airlines flight to Mazatlan, Mexico, had been canceled. "We are presumably going to drive down to Mexico, to Tijuana, the border, and just fly from there," she said. The Transportation Security Administration screened further than 2.4 million trippers at field checkpoints on Thursday, 17 further than on the same Friday before July 4th in 2019. U.S. air trip is likely to set an epidemic period record at least formally over the weekend. Business on the trace could be heavy too. AAA predicts that nearly 48 million people will travel at least 50 long hauls or further from home over the weekend, slightly smaller than in 2019. AAA says the auto trips will set a record indeed, with the public average price for gasoline swimming near $5. The rest trip has bounced back this time, and that means particularly big crowds over 3-day vacation weekends. With numerous breakouts vented out over the July 4th weekend, airlines will struggle to find seats for passengers like Carreño whose breakouts are canceled. Airlines told guests to check their flight status before going to the field. "Still, it's time to flex your multitasking chops," said Sebastian Modic, "if you are formerly at the field when your flight is canceled." Modic advised heading straight to the airline's help office, checking its app on your phone, and calling the airline's client service line and transnational number might be answered sooner than O.S. phone for airlines that have both. He said driving or taking the machine or train will be a better option for shorter passages. "There is no getting around the fact that this is going to be a summer of trip detainments, cancellations, and frustrations," he said. By early evening Friday on the East Coast, airlines had canceled about 500 U.S. breakouts and another 100 were delayed, according to FlightAware. Scattered showers in the New York City area made it probable the figures would climb. From June 22 through Wednesday at least 600 breakouts were canceled, and between 000 and 000 were delayed per day, the shadowing service said. Airline directors condemned the recent swell of canceled breakouts on the Federal Aviation Administration, which runs the nation's air business control system, but Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg controversies that claim. Passengers are caught in the middle. Maria Smile, who flew to Atlanta on Friday, said it took a long time to check in and get through security before her flight from Baltimore. "I got to my gate right as they started boarding, so it was a veritably lengthy process," she said. Jordan Jeffries said she reserved a return trip from Atlanta to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for Monday, the vacation. "I am hoping there are no detainments because I worked that night," she said. Airlines occasionally overbook breakouts with the anticipation that some passengers will not show up. When there are more passengers than seats, airlines will offer cash or trip validations to people willing to take the coming flight. Before this week, a columnist for the magazine wrote that Delta flight attendants offered $000 cash to people who would leave an airplane staying to take off from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Delta spokesperson Anthony Black would neither confirm nor deny the Intelligencer's account, but he noted that the airline raised the compensation agents can offer in similar cases to $950 in 2017. That move followed a public relations agony at United Airlines when field officers crippled and dragged a 69-time-old croaker off a vented-out airplane, a case that redounded in an action, non-public agreement, and jokes on late-night television about United client service. Indeed, with vacationers crowding into airfields and on airplanes, the total number of people flying has not completely recovered from pre-pandemic situations because of a decline in business and transnational trips. TSA screened 11 smaller people in June than it did in the same month of 2019. Thursday marked only the 11th time since the epidemic started that TSA checked further people than it did on the same day in 2019, and just the alternate time since February. Airlines could nearly surely be carrying further passengers if they had enough staffing. Numerous U.S. airlines have trimmed their summer schedules after bad rainfall, air business detainments, and a lack of enough workers caused wide cancellations over the Memorial Day weekend. Airlines paid thousands of workers to quit during the early days of the epidemic when air trips declined and airline profits dried up. They've been hiring lately, But it takes time to train aviators, who are in particularly short force. Now airlines contending for crucial workers are offering double number raises to aviators, who find themselves with influence in accommodations over new contracts. Hundreds of flight cancellations and detainments kick off the busy July 4th weekend. Airlines cancelled nearly 600 breakouts on Friday and further than 600 others arrived late, a tough launch to a busy vacation weekend after a messy spring for air trips infuriated passengers and drew sharp review from Washington. The detainments included further than 970 American Airlines breakouts, nearly 30 of the carrier's mainline schedule for the day, and 756 Delta breakouts, about a quarter of the airline's schedule, according to a census from FlightAware. Showers delayed numerous breakouts at some of the country's busiest capitals. The dislocations eased to about 700 delayed breakouts by Saturday morning. Formally this time, the rate of flight cancellations and detainments in June was more advanced than before the epidemic as a result of bad rainfall and staffing dearths. And airlines and civil officers have been scrabbling to ease frustrations ahead of the busy vacation weekend. This week, Delta took the unusual step of allowing trippers to change breakouts for free, without paying a difference in chow, if they can fly outside of the busy July 1-4 weekend, anytime through July 8. JetBlue Airways offered attendance lanyards for flight attendants this spring to ensure solid staffing. American Airlines Indigenous Airline Envoy is offering aviators triadic pay to pick up redundant passages through July. And carriers including Delta, Spirit, JetBlue, Southwest, and United lately trimmed their schedules to give themselves more twitch room for when effects go wrong. Still, I apologize, Delta CEO Ed Bastian wrote in a dispatch to members of its SkyMiles frequent leaflet program on Thursday, if you've encountered detainments and cancellations lately. We have spent times establishing Delta as the assiduity leader in trustability, and though the maturity of our breakouts continues to operate on time, this position of dislocation and query is inferior. The moves come as fares have soared and passenger counts near pre-pandemic situations. About 2.6 million people could depart to airfields each day of the weekend, according to estimates from the Chow Seamus Hopper. Trippers have largely been willing to pay the advanced fares after being boxed up 2 times in the epidemic. That's been a boon for carriers that are further than making up for a swell in energy costs. The Transportation Security Administration said it screened 2.49 million people on Friday, further compared with the same weekday of 2019 and the most since February 2020. But flying is turning out to be a headache for numerous. Nearly, breakouts arrived at least 15 twinkles late between June 1 and June 29. That represents further than 23 of the listed breakouts, according to Flight Seamus FlightAware, and further than nearly 3 were cancelled. That's up from 20 breakouts being delayed and 2 being cancelled in the same period of 2019. Consumer complaints are piling up. In April, the rare most available data, the Transportation Department entered 105 trippers about 2 airlines, up nearly 300 from April 2021, and at nearly double the rate during the same period last time. Airlines and the Federal Aviation Administration have battered over who's to condemn. Airlines chalk up the dislocations to bad rainfall, staffing dearths, and staffing problems at the government's air business control. With demand for breakouts to Florida rising among vacationers, airlines have complained in particular about traffic stemming from a crucial air business control center in the state that oversees airplanes in flight over a large swath of the Southeast. To avoid getting caught in those detainments, Frontier Airlines CEO Barry Biffle told CNBC this week that the carrier is changing how it schedules crews, limiting flying through that airspace to doubly on a single assignment. Flight detainments tend to ripple through the rest of the network since crews arrive late for their coming breakouts. The FAA, for its part, has called out moves by airlines to let go of knockouts of thousands of workers through buyouts, despite getting $54 billion in taxpayer payroll aid during the epidemic as a part of a deliverance package that banned layoffs. Space launches and military exercises are other obstacles. Political pressure on airlines is rising. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has constantly prompted airlines to ensure they're ready for the summer trip season and to reduce dislocations after the recent torrent of cancellations and detainments, including one that affected a flight the clerk planned to take. Senator Bernie Sanders, Democrat Vermont, also this week said airlines should be fined $0.000 per passenger for canceling breakouts they know they cannot.
On Thursday, The FAA's amusement director Billy Nolan and other top agency officers held a call with airline directors to bandy weekend planning, including the agency's use of overtime to staff its installations, business, and routing plans, according to a person familiar with the meeting. The call was in addition to regular planning meetings with airlines.